Good evening. We call Board of Zoning Appeals for City of Richmond, Wednesday, March the 13th meeting to order. Call roll, please.
Jeff Cook.
Here.
Kelly Cruz Nicholson. Sabre Salazar. Ann Snyder. Here. Rob Tidrow.
Here.
We do have a quorum tonight, and a quorum of 3 means all of our votes either way have to have a unanimous vote roll call in order to pass. Just a little bit of housekeeping. I will have another housekeeping announcement after we get into the meeting just a little bit. If you would stand for the pledge for me. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We do have a copy of the minutes in our packet. If there's no revisions or changes that need to be made, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I'll second it.
Motion
Oh, sorry, I'll put a motion out to approve the minutes as stated.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We have proof of publication.
Yes, thank you. This notice was published in advance and states the time, date, place, and the items on the agenda for tonight's hearings. This notice is in order to hold the public hearings, and I would ask the board to make a motion to accept the proof of publication.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes, or the proof of publication. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Before we start into new business, just a little housekeeping discussion. This is a volunteer board, and we all have other folks that we work for. BZA 7, Sabre Salazar, who's not here, but we're hoping she will get here, has to recuse herself from BZA 7 due to her employment with Earlham. And I have to recuse myself from BZA 9 because of some adjoining property that my employer owns. So we're hoping that Sabre gets here in time for BZA 9 so we can clear the entire docket tonight. But if not, we'll get to next steps for BZA 9 at the end of the meeting. With that, BZA 6 is the petition of Barbara Gephardt for a variance of development standards. Is a petitioner or an agent here tonight? If you would, step to the table, podium, wherever you'd like, and state your name and address for the record, please, and tell us about your petition.
Barbara Gephardt. My home address, Greenmount Pike, Richmond, and the property involved or concerned is 724 South 7th Street, Richmond, Indiana.
Tell us a little bit about your petition to get work.
It's a petition for a pole barn, as we call it. It's all metal. The size is 24 by 24. It will have two garage doors and two 36-inch entrance doors. And it's metal tan and dark brown roof. And it's going behind a private home. Residential home on South 7th Street.
Any questions to the petitioner?
I have no questions.
Okay.
Thank you. With that, I'll open up public hearing for BZA 6-2024. Is anybody wishing to speak in favor or in opposition to this petition? Seeing none, we will close public hearing for BZA 6 and hear the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. BZA 6 is the petition of Barbara Gephardt, owner and agent, located at 724 South 7th Street in Richmond, requesting a variance of development standards to exceed the maximum size for an accessory structure in the urban residential district. Current use is single-family residential. Zoning is urban residential. The lot is 0.124 acres. Adjacent zoning to the north, south, and east are urban residential. To the west is low to moderate intensity industrial. Adjacent land use to the north is vacant residential lot. To the south is vacant residential lot and agricultural general farm. And to the east is single-family residential, and west is agricultural general farm. Not sure if that's right. The proposed variance would allow the petitioner to exceed the maximum size for an accessory structure on a residential lot under 1/2 of an acre of 25% of the primary structure's footprint, which would be approximately 296 feet, to build a 576 square foot detached garage, which is approximately 49% of the footprint of the property's primary structure. I don't typically read the background section of the staff reports into the record, but there is some context that I just wanted to add to this one, which is that I&D is currently undergoing a text amendment to the UDO, which would revise this specific part of the code that she's seeking relief from. We were going to increase the maximum size for an accessory structure on a residential lot like this. So if that were to be approved, which would probably be around April, this petition wouldn't even have to come to the board. So just to add some context. Planning staff consulted with all city departments and utilities to determine any objections based on public health and safety. No health and safety objections were raised. Staff recommends approving the petition to allow a 576 square foot detached garage to be installed in the urban residential district based on the following findings of fact. Number one, the approval of the variance will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because the proposed garage must adhere to the urban residential rear yard setback standards and its size will not impede pedestrian movement or vision in the alleyway. Number two, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because the proposed garage will be entirely in line with its surrounding properties. Of the 11 houses on the west side of this block, 6 currently have detached garages in their rear yards that would be considered a violation of Article 5.06C2, and 3 of those are larger than the garage that is proposed in this petition. Number 3, the strict application of the terms of the ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because strict application of Article 5.06C2 would allow the structure to be 296 square feet or smaller, limiting the petitioner's off-street parking capacity to a small one-car garage. There are no rent commitments, and I'd be happy to address any questions you might have.
Any questions of staff? If there's no questions of staff, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve petition BZA 6-2024.
A second.
With the findings of fact.
Findings of facts.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve BZA 6-2024 based on the finding of facts in the staff report. Will you call the roll, please?
Jeff Cook,
Aye.
Kelly Cruz Nicholson, Sayward Salazar. Aye. Ann Snyder,
Aye.
Rob Tidrow.
Aye.
Motion carries. Good luck.
You done?
Thank you very much. See you tomorrow.
Thankfully, Sayward came, and she is going to recuse herself from BZA 7-2024 because of a conflict of interest or perceived conflict of interest since she works for Irma. With that, we will hear BZA 7-2024 is petitioner
Or its agent.
or his agent.
Gordon Moore, Beals Moore and Associates, representing both Earl College and Thor Construction in this case. A little history on background of what we're requesting. Originally, we had a trash dumpster over in the southeast corner, due east of the building. And during the construction phase of the parking lot, the sanitary district contacted us and said they had concerns because there's a large overhead power line running north and south paralleling our east property line here. And they told us that they needed 20-foot clearance to be able to get their trucks in and lift the dumpsters up. So we went out on site and determined that was not possible where we had originally tried to establish where the dumpsters would be. I think we only had about 18 foot of clearance. So they said, well, you can't put it here, RP&L, a little more history. When we first started this project, there's a large power pole located right south of where those dumpsters was to be. And that power line that runs north and south sends power to most of the northwest part of the city. And to relocate that one power pole was going to be approximately $100,000 to relocate it. So we've designed this entire site to allow that power pole to remain, and the drives and where you see the curves, it went around that. So we built another dumpster pad on the south side of the parking lot, and it encroaches into the 20-foot buffer zone by 6.42 feet. So it would still be 13.54 feet north of the south property line. It's been proposed by another employee of the sanitary district just here recently that we relocate this dumpster pad to further to the north along the east side. And I hope all of you have been out on the site and saw that there is a grade problem there. We've been told repeatedly through the years that for a dumpster pad we have to have it flat, and we had to have it flat on 10 foot on both sides of that pad for the truck to be able to work efficiently in dumping the trash. So they also had only 3 dumpsters proposed, and what we're going to have at least 4 businesses in this new 6,600 square foot building. So we need at least 4 dumpsters, and we're going to propose 5 dumpsters to be put on the dumpsters pad where it's located. There will be a fence along the back side of the buffer zone. Mr. Stamper is going to address some additional issues, but there will also be a fence all the way around the dumpster pad location so that you can't view them from the north. You won't be able to see these pads except when the trash trucks are there collecting trash. So like I said, Mr. Stamper will also ask or give a little presentation, and I'll answer any questions you might have.
Gordon, is there an extension to the alley that runs down the east side of that between Needlers and?
What we did when we originally started this property, that alley went all the way up to National Road West, and we vacated that alley. But then we turned around and all through the driving lane up to where you go out onto 40, we gave easements for the public to continue to use that alley. So it doesn't stop at that location, so they can drive all the way through it.
The only reason I asked that question is when I was on site for this petition, doing a drive-through, I seen I could have turned right to go back down to Southwest C, but I didn't. And well, did they do that for a driveway or whatever? I just did wanted to ask that question. Thank you for answering.
Well, and there's also, if you enter off of College Avenue, there's easements going east and west too. So there's flow through traffic for all the general public to continue to use, even though we did vacate that portion of the alley. And at one time there was an east-west alley that went through there approximately the south line of the building itself.
Went over the hill to Needlers?
No, it didn't do that. It stopped there at the hilltop. So.
Are there any other questions to the petitioner? Danny, did you want to speak to?
Well, answer any questions you might have. Of course, he explained to you how it come to be, and actually,
If you would state your name and address for the record, please.
Danny Stamper, lifetime Richmond resident. I'm the managing member of Stamp D College Development LLC, and then I'm president of Thor Construction Company, your general contractor. So, you know, in hindsight, we probably, in the beginning, should have asked for a variance back there. But Gordon and I both thought that it would work where we were sticking it, which at the time satisfied everybody. Of course, now we have the power line scenario, which really doesn't give us any options. So they originally thought they could put them to the east, but since there's more than 3 dumpsters that they said they could put there, we're gonna need 4 beginning, 1 for each of our 4 tenants. And then Roots Bistro feels they might need a second one. Now, one thing I wanted to concern ourselves with, especially for our neighbor, was odor and so forth. Everything that comes out of all 4 of these will be bagged. They will not be loose. Your trash runs twice a week, and then once a month, the dumpster areas will be pressure washed. Since I own the building, I've signed all the leases, so I know that that's the terminology. So we're basically asking for it under your difficult scenario, you know.
So is this gonna be fenced and locked?
So that you then would.
It will be fenced. I don't think it's going to be locked in the front, but you know, it'll be fenced, hopefully to match the fence we replaced that is wooden now. It'll be a plastic vinyl, dark vinyl, and then we'll corral that also.
I have a question. At one time, there was the Domino's Pizza in that area. Do we remember where they put those dumpsters or dumpster? Or
They
was
were
it
out
much
back
different?
behind the Domino's. You know, I bought that thing 8 years ago. Of course, I bought it, Jeff, for the curb cut. The building wasn't important. But it's taken us, our image of doing this project like we have, has been 8 years in the making. I bought that Domino's for just the curb cut. The building was nothing to me. So fortunately, we got the right set of directors on board at Earlham. You know, we had 4 presidents that were for it. We just had to have the right set of trustees. And so we did that. We're moving forward here, and I hope everybody that passes by there thinks it's a beautiful building. And of course, we didn't want dumpsters out front. Makes me wonder now when I bring that up, why the planning director, maybe he does, but why a beautification is not part of his decision making. And surely to goodness, going up and down National Road and seeing those dumpsters there in front of that beautiful building that I spent way too much money on. But that should be a part of the discussion in the planning department. So, get any questions of me, I'd be glad to answer them.
We received an updated staff report today that has a couple of written commitments in there. Have you seen those?
Yeah.
You know what they are? Is there an issue with either of those?
No.
Could you tell us
Now-
more?
They're in your packet, but
Yeah.
the first written commitment is if we approve the new dumpster location, or even if we don't approve it, is to construct a new fence along the south property line, correct?
Right.
And then you have stated, and Gordon stated, that the dumpster pad location will have an additional fence around it, correct?
Correct.
That's what you said.
And then it goes on to say, regardless of the outcome of the BZA 7, the owner is responsible for landscaping the buffer yard according to the UDO, which is 1 evergreen tree every 12 feet contiguous along the boundary and with conflicting zoning district, and 1 shrub per 8 feet of contiguous boundary with the conflicting zoning district.
Well, I have some difficulties with that. I know those are guidelines, and fir trees look good if they're covering a chain link fence that's covering solar panel farms. Really looks good. If I was the property owner back there, I don't think I would like that. It's always been negotiable. In this case, what I've asked city planning to do, which they have not done, is set up a meeting with me and the neighbor to give her what she wants. We're not butting up to country, we're butting up to a neighbor here. Now, I had proposed somebody at some time built that nice stone back in the corner with the wrought iron. That shouldn't be covered up. That's great. From there on down, that wooden fence needs to be replaced with a tan fence of sort, all the way down as far as you want. You tell me where to stop. I know where it was, but you know. And then nothing other than a few things around the dumpster should break that up. Now we're talking about your house on around. And that's where, if it were me and I was concerned about any smell, and by the way, that breeze goes east-southeast. It never comes back this way. I've been there 3 years of walking that thing, and it'll go away from you. But I would want some smelly good flowery trees or bushes there. You follow me? You should have input on that, not them dictating that you're going to just take fir trees. So that's what I want to do with that. And I will want to do what she wants. And we will do that. So that's where I need to meet with Dustin, who so far I have never met, like to, because we're going to be doing a lot together here. But,
Dustin Purvis, Danny Sanford.
okay, nice to meet you here. But we need to be on site with her to discuss this. This is something that you and I need to do. And between me and you, that's your job, to meet with us. So far, you've refused to do that. But I can't understand that when that is your job, to meet with a developer / contractor and get this worked out. No need to comment, but I do need, they've got a copy of all that. You and I need to meet with that lady and give her what she wants.
Just for the board to know,
Okay, whoever. I talked to you, Gwen, right? Okay.
if such a meeting were to take place and they were to agree on something, it would deviate from the zoning code, so it would just require another variation or variance, because as you can see in the written commitment that you read, the zoning code states
Yes.
one thing, so anything that varies from that would require
Okay.
another.
I understand this is your first year maybe here? Okay. So I've been doing this for a long time, and it's never been exactly like it's written. There's always been variations depending on where it's done.
But tonight, all we're asking for is a variance
Correct.
for the dumpster itself. And if there's other negotiations in the future, we may be back to you, but right now, we're complying.
My understanding, he wants to change the written commitments. Is that correct? Is that how I'm hearing this? The second written commitment is what Mr. Stanford wants to change. So that would change what we're going to vote on, right?
Just whether or not you want to approve that written commitment.
So is there some way that we can
wanna-
write it so that we can have maybe a future meeting that would be part of the written commitment tonight? Or I guess I should.
There could be a written commitment that, includes a condition that anything that varies from our landscape buffer yard standards has to come back to the board.
Okay.
It would mean another variance hearing.
Well, landscaping wouldn't be necessarily a variance, would it? That falls under your different little category there that comes out and tells me what to do and so forth, doesn't it? That's not a variance issue.
Development standards.
Yeah, which, like I say,
It requires.
tell
a
you certain
variance.
things, but they've always been flexible. And everybody before you has always not had a firm hand on planting fir trees. My main complaint is the fir trees.
Documentation, predecessor, the last time this came to the Board of Zoning Appeals, to place the dumpster on the east side, there were requirements that you would landscape the buffer yard according to Article 5 of the UDO. That's still the case. We're not asking for anything in addition.
Well, we may have to get into that a little bit, but I think we need to first off satisfy that lady and then back up as to what you may be going to require me, above and beyond what she wants.
Yeah, I think if you have agreement from the adjacent property owner, I'm sure that would help your case when you brought it back to the board.
I can't get anything from her until you come out here and meet with us and say, and she may say, I like this kind of tree. Then you can say, okay, that's okay with me, instead of a fir. You've got to be there. What is your job if it's not to come out on site? Please help me here. I can't do this alone. You've got to come out and help us. In this case, we've got a neighbor.
Danny, let's.
If a
Well,
meeting
you got to
was,
help me,
if a
Jeff.
meeting was requested somewhat recently, there was a discussion where I advised Dustin not to meet with a petitioner who is arguing that he's gonna sue the city and get a lawyer and
Not once
be all
did
up
you
in
hear
horns.
that from me.
So I did hear a rumor.
No, well, rumors don't get
So,
it. Do you know Danny Stamper?
Sir,
You can call me on the phone. You could have come out there and camera and discuss while we discuss this with our neighbor. I don't care about any of that. By you not letting him come out and do his job, Now that
If someone
is
is
reason
threatening
for
litigation,
litigation.
sir, if someone's threatening
Okay.
litigation, then I'm gonna advise the clients to not meet with someone who's
Well, you
threatening
didn't hear
litigation.
that from me, and I,
Enough.
okay, it is enough.
This has gone way too long.
Right.
And you're becoming out of control.
I agree.
I understand what you're asking.
We just want the dumpster
So-
for now.
We'll just table it
For-
Looks to me
for
like
right
we'll
now-
discuss the rest.
If you have no further comments,
I
I'd
don't.
I'd
Thanks
like
for
to
listening.
open up public comments and hear from anybody that wishes to speak in favor or in opposition of this petition. If you would, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Michael Burkle. I live at 219 College Avenue with my wife.
I'm Gwen Halstead
We've
at
lived
219 College
there
Avenue.
for 26
6 years.
years yes, at that place. We prepared some comments in advance in order to be concise and take up less of your time. Conveying the full measure of our unhappiness about this would take longer. The contractors seem to have known about this problem for a long time. There are site plans that have the dumpster, public site plans that have the dumpster, and there's 2 other locations from where the pad now is. I don't know why they didn't acknowledge this from the start. I don't want to try to second guess the motivation of the developers, the contractors, but I wonder why was there no application for a variance until everything was already in place? Is this don't ask permission, ask forgiveness later? I don't know. But they made an error, and they expect us to live with it. Usually when I make a mistake, I pay for it. I don't see how that's just.
And this is a copy of the site plan that's been posted for a year and a half on the site. And it does not have the dumpster in the place where it was in the variance 2 years ago. It has the dumpster in the buffer zone, but closer to where the alley was. And that's been out there, you know, on the corner or in the building for, since the construction started. And so it seems like the contractors have known about that power line and have had another plan that I don't know if they just hoped that nobody would notice or care, and get away with having dumpsters right outside our kitchen window. It's not what we were hoping for. So this is, you know, it's already built. It's hard to figure out another place. We will grant that, although we don't like that. But it just seems like if the city is going to have a UDO, it needs to be followed. If a code doesn't have any teeth, it just doesn't mean anything. And so we hope that the city will, in general, enforce its ordinances. So it's not just that, I mean, there's smells, but there's also the noise. I don't know, we haven't yet lived next door to a drive-through window, but we're about to, and I don't know if any of you do, but it's noisy. And so if you build a privacy fence, it'll be below the level of our windows. That's not going to keep the noise out. I mean, I'm open to other trees besides the evergreens, but when I talked to the landscaping folks, they said, oh no, you can't have deciduous trees because that takes too much water and they're too hard to get started, is what the Nettle Creek folks told me. But honestly, I don't know. I think I would rather have an evergreen barrier that grows tall, that has some chance, probably not while we live in that house, but of blocking some of the sound, as well as the sight of a strip mall right outside our windows. I mean, if it weren't right next door, I'd say, yeah, that's a fine strip mall. But I mean, it's our side yard, and so those are our feelings. And I think I will leave it at that, except maybe to remind you, Mr. Stamper, that you said you would put light barriers on the backs of the
Shields,
poles.
we put 2 shields on the back there as well. Was I going to ask you if it took care of it, because the 2 pole lights, yeah, there's shields on
Noticed
them.
Flooding into our kitchen.
Check that out and let me know, but we did put shields on those.
We hadn't noticed yet.
Okay.
I mean, if
If
Not
these, the
lights,
light comes in the
Maybe
windows.
get a deeper shield, but we did put them on.
Please get a deeper shield. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Could I ask a question? Is that okay? So on the corner where their house is on College, long before I moved here, so what was that zoned on the corner? It was vacant when I moved here in 2018, so that property's just been built in the last couple of years. What was it zoned? So did they buy the property knowing that eventually some
No.
this property would be?
It was urban residential.
It was residential.
So it changed, so we, through this board, we then approved that to be changed to
The
commercial.
planning commission.
The planning commission, okay. Fair enough, thank you.
With the dumpster.
Only your little Domino's building is commercial.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak? With that, we'll close public
Can
hearing.
I address a couple things?
Yes.
So during the construction phase, the first thing they did was poured the east side. And during that period was when the sanitary district showed up and notified myself, I think we got an issue out here. Then while the contractor was still on site pouring the concrete, then after that is when they went ahead and put the pad in the location it's presently in. Recently, I've had an opportunity to speak about another project where I brought up that the UDO provides this board and the city provisions to discipline or fine anybody that doesn't comply with their zoning. And certainly buffer zone falls into that category. And failure to comply with that without coming back to you and getting another variance, you have the mechanism to make sure that happens, or the mechanism to punish those people. So again, I would like to just stick with the variance at hand, which is the location of the dumpster, and if we have to in the future, we'll address the other issues. Thank you.
Is there anybody else wishing to speak? Mr. Collins, if you'd state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi everybody, I'm Dakota Collins with Earlham College. I live in Richmond at 2307 East Main Street. Earlham is located at 801 National Road West. This has been a long ongoing project for the college, and I just want to speak just for a moment about its importance to the college as an institution, as a part of our overall strategy for not only community engagement, but increased enrollment for students and employee attraction and retention. As many people know, the college has suffered some enrollment decline since COVID. We've had students tell us that one of the reasons they might not want to come to Earlham is because they don't see themselves at home in Richmond. There's not a lot for them to do. We're working to change that through a number of avenues. This project to bring closer the Richmond community to the Earlham community in a way that Earlham students can have something to do, have a place to go eat that's off campus, is a significant part of our enrollment strategy. Not only is that important for the college, but it's important for the broader Richmond community as well, because our goal is not to bring students in for 4 years, educate them, and then send them off to anywhere else in the world. We want them to see a home in Richmond and use their education and build their lives here. I can recognize the fact that this project may not have been done in all of the ways that we would have hoped for, but based on the information from Mr. Moore, the college believes that this is the best but unfortunate avenue, and we would hope that you would approve this variance. And while I agree with Mr. Moore that this is not the time to talk about the buffer zone, I will say as a representative of the college, the neighbors to the property are long-standing, very important members of the Earlham community, and I will do everything in my power to make sure that you guys have an experience that is better than the experience that you've had so far, and create that buffer zone that both the college, the contractor, and the neighbor can be proud of. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? With that, we'll close public hearing here, the staff report.
Mr. Chair. BZA 7 is the petition of Earlham College owner, Gordon Moore is the agent, located at 531 National Road West in Richmond, requesting 2 variances of development standards to reduce minimum side yard setbacks for a trash receptacle and to place said receptacle within a required buffer yard in the general commercial district. Current use is commercial, zoning is general commercial, the lot is 1.061 acres. Adjacent zoning to the north is general commercial and high-density single-family residential. To the south is urban residential. To the east is general commercial, and to the west is high-intensity single-family residential. Adjacent land use to the north is single-family residential and commercial convenience market and gas station. To the south is single-family residential. To the east is commercial supermarket. And to the west is institutional Earlham School of Religion. The proposed variance would allow a commercial dumpster to be located within the required buffer yard separating the subject property from the less intense zoning district to the south. The proposed dumpster pad would be located approximately 13.5 from a residential property to the south. On February 28, 2024, a public hearing was advertised in Western Wayne News. On February 29, 24 adjacent properties were notified about the variance and public hearing by mail.
We received 9 papers back. 9 were in favor. They were all from Earlham. 1 was in opposition. Rosemary Fitzgerald at 303 College Avenue, and she had these comments. I am opposed to this petition as it would be placing a commercial dumpster immediately on the side of my neighbor's home at 219 College Avenue. This home is the only residence directly next to the petitioner's commercial property, and it appears that due to the petitioner's oversight in their original plans, my neighbor will be bearing the consequence. I urge the BZA to challenge the petitioner to present a better plan, as I am confident that the problem solvers at Earlham and Thor Construction can come up with a neighborly solution to their oversight rather than the easy solution of moving their commercial dumpster next to someone's home. No one at this meeting would be okay with a commercial dumpster next to their home. Although landscaping should be added per the application, and although a fence should be added around the dumpster wherever it lands, those efforts do not prevent unpleasant odors. I want to emphasize that 219 College Avenue, my neighbor's home, is the only residence directly next to the petitioner's commercial property. The other houses and properties are owned by Earlham College or Bethany Seminary. My home is the first residential property after 219 College that is not owned by either of these institutions. I want to emphasize this because the petitioner's mistake disproportionately and solely affects the homeowners at 219 College. That being the case, they should be considered above others in this matter. Thank you for your time.
Planning staff consulted with all city departments and utilities to determine any objections based on public health and safety. No health and safety objections were raised. Staff makes no recommendation on the petition to allow a trash receptacle to be installed within a landscape buffer in the general commercial district based on the following findings of fact. Number 1, the approval of the variance will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because the dumpster will be screened on all sides according to UDO Article 5.95B1, and the proposed location will not impede the flow of vehicular traffic through the property. Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will be affected in a substantially adverse manner because the dumpster will be approximately 13.5 feet from a property zoned urban residential. While a new fence and required screening may eliminate visibility of the dumpster from the adjacent property to the south, the odor and increased noise resulting from the proximity of the dumpster to the residential property will likely have a substantially adverse effect. The required buffer yard between conflicting zoning districts is intended to alleviate concerns of this nature. And 3, the strict application of the terms of the ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because as built out, there does not currently appear to be an alternative location to house the quantity of dumpsters that the site's future commercial tenants will require for their operations. Richmond Power and Light's Chief Engineer Scott Minardi and Richmond Sanitary District's Collections and Recycling Manager Randy Wright both confirmed that the location of the dumpster pad that was originally approved on the east side of the property could potentially interfere with overhead utility lines during pickup. Mr. Wright and Mr. Minardi both later confirmed that placing the dumpsters just north of the originally approved location would alleviate the concern about utility wires. Mr. Wright stated that RSD drove one of their trucks onto the east side of the subject property and confirmed that the slight grade of the location would not create an issue for pickup. RSD's director, Pat Smoker, confirmed that the dumpsters could be placed at this location. However, Mr. Wright was unsure if more than 3 of their 3-yard commercial dumpsters could be placed at this location without moving farther south, which would put the utility wires back in play. The petitioner's agent has stated that they are looking to place 4 or 5 such dumpsters on the site. There are 2 written commitments. Number 1, if the request to place the dumpster in the buffer yard is approved, the owner is responsible for installing a wood or brown composite fence along the south property line. And number 2, and this is more just to put this in the record, regardless of the outcome of BZA 7 2024, the owner is responsible for landscaping the buffer yard according to UDO Article 5.49B 2 and 3, which require at minimum 1 evergreen tree per 12 feet contiguous boundary with a conflicting zoning district, and 1 shrub per 8 feet of contiguous boundary with the conflicting zoning district. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Could we put a stipulation in the written commitment where there might be a meeting between the owners and so that we don't have to be so specific on like the fir tree? Can we be maybe a little more open to what would be helpful to the homeowners to college?
I don't know if we want to stipulate that they have to have that meeting, but if they do, I mean, it would still require.
No, I'm just saying this is pretty specific.
It is.
And
Yes.
so I'm wondering if there could be some leeway as to what actually ends up going in there.
Typically, any variance from the UDO would require coming back here.
Okay.
So I would say, and that the way the UDO is written requires a minimum of 1 evergreen tree every 12 feet. There's no stipulation that says between those, something else couldn't be planted. They go above that. They could plant a tree every 3 feet if they wanted to set up a hedge line or something like that.
I guess what I hear here is something that could be easily arbitrated between people who are willing to work together. And I just think that if we could have people meet and talk, that's what this world is about. And I think that both parties are willing to say, let's come out and say what best fits so that we can have a really nice, because we want that building there. We want Earlham to be successful. We also want homeowners to live in their house. I don't know that I'd want a drive-through in my backyard, but I'm just saying, can we please somehow come to some type of agreement so we don't have to like always come back here and change the variance?
I don't know that we can, since just like a rear yard setback, just like some other things, if we're going to amend the UDO requirement for the buffer zone plantings, and please stop me if I'm incorrect, if we say we're not gonna do this, let them arbitrate it out, then they'd have to come back for a second variance or third variance to amend UDO 5.49B 2 and 3.
And typically
That's my takeaway.
And usually this would be determined on the front end of the project.
Right.
Also, I don't want to put the neighbor on the spot. I kind of got the impression that the required evergreens would be okay with, or
We are okay with evergreens.
Okay.
So I have another question, if I may. I don't want to butt from.
I have a question, but you can.
Go ahead.
I was just wondering if the current pad is big enough for the 5 dumpsters that you indicate, because he wasn't, Mr. Wright was unsure if more than 3 could fit in that northeast corner.
That was when they put it back
So,
to what it
The
was.
area that the
Right.
site,
I just wondered if he could, if he was unsure, could he not measure that? Could he not know if there was enough space?
So how many
We
are gonna
measured
fit
it
in here?
and we know that there's adequate room.
They're 3 yards.
Where they wanted to put it would have
Originally.
only been, where the sanitary district recommended they put it, would have only been enough for 3. And then the grade right at the middle of that driveway breaks both ways, breaks to the north and to the south.
Okay, right.
So that was our issue with moving it to the north, was at that time we thought the grade was critical. It's what we've been informed, is
Right.
designed 50 of these things, and we always try to put them on as flat as area as possible.
Right.
But yes, to answer to your question.
The current, where the current slab
Right.
pad is, it can fit what you need, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So my question is, maybe for everybody in the room, when, in approximate date-wise, was the issue discovered that the dumpster pad, as presented in the first variance, would not work?
During the period of construction of the driveway itself, so late last summer, I believe, was when it was brought to my attention. Probably July, August, somewhere around in there, that the sanitary district contacted us and said, we have an issue here. It was as the drive was being poured.
So, to carry on with that same vein of questioning, so late last summer, problem. The decision, I'm assuming, was made to relocate it to where it's at now.
Because the decision was based because they were pouring the concrete. You know what I'm talking about, Jeff.
I get it.
If the trucks had to leave, we had to reform everything. You just doubled the cost of putting that pad in. So
Understand
the
that.
decision was made at that time to put it in that particular location, knowing that we were going to have to come back here.
And that's a little bit of my heartburn right now, that, you know, late last summer it was discovered. I get you went ahead and did the work. I probably would have too. But why, and I'm being the devil's advocate here, 6 months, you know, late summer, early spring now, has transpired before you came back and said, hey, was there conversations with planning? Was there, or is it, okay, now we're ready to open and we have this problem that's not
To
resolved?
be totally honest with you, I think planning brought it to my attention and said that we would need a variance to relocate that at that particular location. And if you need somebody to blame, I'm way
I'm
over.
looking for blame, I'm just looking for
I'm just saying
time.
I'm way overloaded and way understaffed, and this came out of my office, and it's taken me that long to bring it to this point.
I have no further questions. What's the board's pleasure?
I feel like my hands are tied a little bit by zoning of a piece of property that was zoned commercial long before I moved here. So I'm having a tough time with this one because you want to see both parties be successful.
So, I'm looking at your plot plan. I guess I'm not done with questions, I'm sorry. And, you know, what's done is done. And even if the dumpster pad was moved to the east, or the west, excuse me, further towards College Avenue, it doesn't take away from their concerns about their windows, smells, that kind of stuff. I understand what Mr. Stamper said about winds, typically come out of the southwest to northeast, but not always. And I did drive through there, and I went, oh my, that's really close to the neighbor's house. The fence, I mean, no different than what is written, the fence and the screenings, whatever they end up being, take care of the visual, but, you know, I'm kind of empathizing with the neighbors about, you know, the smells, you know, right outside my kitchen window, I believe you said. So I entertain a motion if there is one.
Can I respond to that? a little
Yeah.
bit? It was located in the center of that long stretch, hopefully to give the vehicles, trucks, adequate room to get in and out of there. That was the main concern. So it wasn't the determination, okay, of the house so much as it was the ability of the sanitary district to collect the trash
Yeah.
out of those bins.
Yeah, and even moving it west, they would have to come in and then back up to pick them up, and I get that. I've built too many of these myself to not look at that and go, oh yeah. And I've looked at this plot plan a dozen times tonight, and even before, and I would have to agree with Mr. Stamper. The only other place is right out front.
And one of the considerations, one of his tenants has a stipulation, they will not rent if a trash dumpster is placed in front of the building or adjacent to the building.
Yeah, I
They
understand
want that trash dumpster to be in the back. You don't want a restaurant with the trash dumpster right
Well,
there.
I mean, there's some safety considerations, there's the path of travel to get the refuse out of the building, all of that. You don't want to take it out through the front door in the dining rooms and what have you.
It's hard to imagine right now, looking at what's there, and it is a beautiful site right now, but what we started with and the elevation differences, and if you've been out there, you notice we had to put a rock wall to stagger things down. We had to move things to the west, away from the far slope going down into the grocery store. We put 5 pounds or 10 pounds into a 5-pound bucket. And so even where it was at originally was not a real choice location for the dumpster site. This is an improvement if we could get it here from what it was on the east side.
I'm going to put forth a motion to approve BZ 7, 2024 with the written commitments as they're stated.
And the finding of fact.
Yes, and the finding of fact.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve BZA 7 based on the staff report and written commitments and findings of fact. Call the roll, please.
Jeff Cook,
Aye.
Ann Snyder,
Aye.
Rob Tidrow,
Aye.
So the motion carries. And the written commitments, just to reiterate that, are to the UDO standards. If you guys want to negotiate with the neighbors for additional stuff to help offset their concerns, I would encourage you to do so. And I hope that you guys can become really good neighbors, really good friends.
Thank you.
Again.
Oh, wow, yeah. BCA 8, 2024, the petition of Kelly Cox, owner and agent. Come on up and tell us about your project. State your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, my name's Kelly Cox. I live at 4971 US Highway 27 South in Richmond, and I'd like to get some variances to put a larger than permitted building as of right now on my property at 505 South G Street in order to house my large dump trucks and equipment for my business.
Any questions? Petition?
Looks good.
with that, I'll open up public hearing. If anybody wants to speak in favor or in opposition, please come forward. Seeing or hearing none, we'll close public hearing and hear the staff. You have a seat, Mr. Cox.
BZA 8 is the petition of Kelly Cox, owner and agent, located at 505 South G Street in Richmond, requesting 2 variances in development standards to exceed the maximum size and height of an accessory structure in the urban residential district. Current use is commercial structure. Zoning is urban residential. The lot is 0.342 acres. Adjacent zoning to the north is urban residential and outdoor commercial. To the south is urban residential. To the east is low to moderate intensity industrial. And to the west is general commercial. Adjacent land use to the north is commercial liquor store and residential 3-family. To the south is single-family residential. To the east is industrial, light manufacturing and assembly, and an inactive railroad. And to the west is single-family residential and small retail. The proposed variance would allow the petitioner to exceed the maximum size and height for an accessory structure on a residentially zoned property to build a 70 by 60 or 4,200 square foot storage structure that is between 22 and 24 feet tall. On February 28th, the public hearing was advertised in Western Wayne News. On February 29th, 37 adjacent property owners were notified about the variance in public hearing by mail.
We received 6 back. James R. Cones at JAPC Incorporated, 529 South 5th, is in favor. Sarah and Lawrence Cox, 2625 US 27 South in Richmond, they're in favor. Kyle Tom at 1075 Radcliffe Court, in favor. Vivia L. Johnson at 614 South 6th is in favor. Charles Gray at 621 South 6th is in favor. Marvin Smith at 720 South 5th is opposed.
Planning staff consulted with all city departments and utilities to determine any objections based on public health and safety. No health and safety objections were raised. Staff recommends approving the petition to allow a 4,200 square foot storage-based accessory structure that is between 22 and 24 feet tall to be installed in the urban residential district based on the following findings of fact. Number 1, the approval of the variance will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because the petitioner's plans indicate that the structure will be set back roughly the same distance from South 6th Street as all of the residential structures between South 6th and South H. Further, there is sufficient room off of South 6th Street to maneuver large vehicles into the proposed garage. Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because the property is immediately adjacent to both industrial and commercial uses, as well as an inactive railroad. The proposed structure and its use will not be out of sync with the surrounding area. Number 3, the strict application of the terms of the ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because despite its urban residential zoning district or designation, 505 South G Street has never housed a residential structure and has maintained its legal non-conforming use by operating as a commercial lot for decades. Given the industrial and commercial characteristics of the adjacent area, strictly residential use of the property would face challenges. In fact, the southeast portion of the lot was recently combined with the subject property after the residential structure on that location was raised as part of the City of Richmond's blight elimination program. Therefore, holding the property to strictly residential development standards and limiting its capacity to continue its use as an excavation business would create a practical difficulty for the petitioner. If there are no written commitments, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions to the staff?
No questions.
With no questions, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve BZA 8-2024 with the findings of facts.
I second it.
A motion and a second to approve BZA 8-2024 based on the finding of facts. Call the roll, please.
Jeff Cook,
Aye.
Sayward Salazar,
Aye.
Ann Snyder,
Aye.
Rob Tidrow,
Aye.
Motion carries. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
At this time, I'm going to step out and recuse myself from BZA 9. Legally capable hands to close up shop. You boss. Have a good night, everybody.
See you,
thanks.
Jeff,
Yes, ma'am.
can you not leave?
can wait on this. All right, we are now ready to hear BZA 9/2024, the petition of JK 5901 East National Road LLC, owner Chick-fil-A Inc., agent.
Good evening, my name is Mike Timko, address is 500 East 96th Street, Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm a civil engineer for Kimley Horn and I'm here on behalf of Chick-fil-A this evening. I take it everybody's probably familiar with Chick-fil-A, so I won't spend too much time talking about the restaurant itself. But I did want to share a few highlights. First being that it is family owned and privately held. It is not a publicly traded franchise. And the other item is that they do now have over 3,000 locations throughout the United States and Canada. One thing that you may not know about Chick-fil-A is just a little bit about their franchise ownership model. It is a little unique from what you're probably used to seeing as far as quick serve restaurants go. So opposed to some restaurant industries that have franchisee owners that own dozens, if not more, stores, Chick-fil-A is a little unique in the fact that they look for local ownership, and the vast majority of their franchise owners only own one location. So it is their primary job and their source of income. So it's a little bit unique. So we like to point that out, that it has much more of a local feel, a local investment because of their ownership model. The site we're looking at is located in the southwest quadrant of the US 40 I-70 interchange. Many of you probably know it as the former Steak and Shake site. So that's where we're looking at doing this proposed development. And then I wanted to touch briefly on the several variances that we're requesting for approval this evening. The first one is to place the freestanding order point canopy within the minimum side yard setback. That would be on the east side towards the IHOP. And when I bring up the site plan here in a little bit, I'll elaborate a little bit more on what that looks like. The second variance would be to encroach the front parking lot setback, and that would be along the west side of the property, so along Eaton Park, or Eaton Pike. And so that would be to allow the parking stalls to encroach into that 10-foot setback. Another variance would be requesting to allow the pole sign to encroach the minimum front yard sign setback, which is currently 10 feet. We're requesting to reduce that to 5. And again, I'll bring up a signage plan here shortly to elaborate on that. And then we are also asking for variances to increase the maximum sign area. So we're proposing 4 signs, 1 on each side of the building. And I wanted to point out that even though the cumulative area of all those signs would exceed code, the maximum code allowance for each facade would still be met by code. So it wouldn't be just that we're asking for one obnoxiously large sign on one side of the building. And then the last variances are related to the dumpster, which again we're requesting to place in the front yard. That would be along Eaton Pike. And then so it would be 2 variances, one for it being in a front yard because we're a corner lot. And then the second one would be to encroach the setback more than 50% because the UDO does have a provision that it's allowed to encroach up to 50%. So Dustin, if you don't mind bringing up the site plan here. So the blue rectangle in the top right corner of the screen, that's our order point canopy. So it's a freestanding open-sided canopy. If you've been to a newer Chick-fil-A, you're probably familiar with what this looks like. This is where folks pull up and where employees greet their customers using the drive-through. So Chick-fil-A provides this canopy to provide protection for their employees and for their customers from any weather that's in the area. So you can see what we're doing is we're trying to maximize the drive-through length, which is what is pushing that canopy further and further over to the east property line. A couple of the other variances as it pertains to the dumpster, you can see on the middle left side of the page here along Eaton Pike. The reason that we've located it there is twofold, or I guess a couple reasons. One is that we have a responsibility to maintain the access through to the IHOP, so that constrains us right off the bat. So we had to make sure that drive-through goes through in the condition The other thing you can see is that this is a very uniquely shaped lot, how it tapers down at the southern end, and also the way, because it's NDOT right of way, it cuts off in the northeast corner as well. The reason we didn't put it on the very south end is twofold. One, that would be a very lengthy walk for employees to go from the building all the way to the south end. And it just increases the chances of trash potentially spilling on that long walk. The second thing is because there's a few utilities on the south end that service the IHOP, the sanitary and the water service both go through, we really try to avoid putting any dumpster enclosures over utilities, and a lot of times it's not even allowed. So the only way we were going to be able to put it on the south end of the property was to tuck it all the way at the south, which would be very difficult for a trash truck to be able to maneuver, line up, and pick up the dumpsters. So with that, if you could go to the next one, Dustin, wanted to show everybody the building elevations. You can see it's a high portion of masonry, and then also down in the bottom right corner is the masonry dumpster enclosure as well. So you can see that it matches the building facade. Really a nice upgraded dumpster enclosure. And then obviously we're leaving ourselves room as well to do landscaping around that as it faces Eaton Pike. If you could go one more, Dustin. So now I'll switch gears to the signage variances. Couple things to point out. Like I said, we're proposing a sign on each side of the building. Obviously we're a corner lot, so having the two frontages is a given. But we also know that just given the direction of 40, that folks will have the opportunity to see the other sides. And then what would be the south side, so what faces towards the Lowe's, would be the main customer entry. So we really like to have signage over that as well. The other thing I'll point out is that the way the sign area is calculated is that it basically creates a rectangle around the script of the Chick-fil-A text. So you can see the C is very large as a part of their logo, but then the rest of the script gets smaller. But the way code is written, we have to do the full 5-foot height for the entire length of it. So the reality is the sign itself doesn't actually take up as much space as what the square footage is, but per code, we acknowledge that we would need a variance to get that approved. And then if you could go one more, Dustin, wanted to point out too where the pole sign is located, so the red rectangle at the top of the screen here. Again, a lot of the need for this variance stems from the fact that we don't have one of those corner lots that actually comes to a true corner. We're kind of chamfered off by the NDOT right of way. So you can see in the scheme of our neighbors and really the US 40 corridor, this sign is going to be very much in line. It's just that because of our angled lot line at the corner that we're asking for a 5-foot encroachment of that pole sign. And then Dustin, if you could go one more, I just wanted to show the board what this pole sign is proposed to look like. So with that, I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
I have a bunch.
Sure.
So when you pull off of the 40 and you're turning on to, like, you're going to go to Lowe's, is that Pike Way? Anyway, there's like this little piece of cement. What are you going to do with that? And will that be access for IHOP to get, or how will people get around?
Oh, perfect.
Oh, thank you.
So are you referring to the one that's really close to the intersection?
Yeah.
Okay, so that one, when the IHOP was developed, you can see it was cut off.
Right.
So our intent, so our site plan is actually going to have a drive that connects to this point here. So that would stay just a right in, right out only, but then all the pavement to the east of that would be demolished so that it would go back to a lawn condition.
Road to nowhere.
Right.
And so people then are still going to come from behind almost, they're going to almost like they're going to go to Lowe's and then come in that way? Is that what you're saying?
They come off you.
Well, what we really foresee most people using that one for is their exit opportunity. So they'll probably come out of the drive-through, make a quick right up to that, and then go out to the light. So it's really probably going to be more for exit would be what we would anticipate.
I do anticipate a lot of traffic there now if you have, you guys. And there's no, I don't think there's no restrictions to turn left either. I've seen people go up through that curve there on that pad and shoot straight across to the gas station across, or even turn left, south on Eaton Pike.
Okay.
I don't know, probably nothing up to you, but.
Yeah, and you can see just barely, and That doesn't mean that folks are gonna obey it. There is actually a raised median right here. It's probably pretty broken down
Yeah.
over
But
time,
People will go up to it.
but they're still going around. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think there's a couple things we can do, and I know a lot of times even just having a sign in the center of that or with a bollard or something is enough to discourage people to do that.
So
Obviously,
Who would own that?
so that's technically an NDOT right-of-way right now, and we've already had conversations with NDOT to make sure that they're okay with that staying there.
Because I can see it also being a problem when you want to go, west on 40, you got to wait for traffic to clear out, to jump over.
Yeah, and that's why maintaining the second full access point further back is key.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So are you using the original building or are you?
Usually, because they usually come in and tear it down. That's been my history with Chick-fil-A.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Yes, entirely new building.
And so the green is,
I guess I'm seeing, like, are you gonna be encroaching on that grass that's kind of to the, down by Pike, I guess? Are you gonna be using some of that, extending some of that out?
So are you referring to this
Yeah.
area where the cursor is? Yeah, so Chick-fil-A is actually working with Lowe's to parcel off a little bit more of that so that they can extend their parking that direction as well.
And then when I feel like the Chick-fil-A expert here, but I've driven like a bunch. So what I usually see is like 2 lanes and then a third kind of return. And is that kind of what, or the smaller ones that I visited, they're just doing 2 and then?
Yeah, so their newest model, and this really some of this stemmed out of COVID because that obviously changed the drive-through and even the mobile order game quite a bit. So their latest prototype is to have 2 drive-through lanes that would go the full length of that. And so the owner and operator actually has a couple choices of how they can utilize that. During peak hours, a lot of them choose to use both lanes in full capacity. They do have the option to narrow that down to 1 lane, depending on the time of day. And there's actually some that even have designated the outside lane for mobile order pickup only. So gives them flexibility, but the double drive-through is obviously a huge part of their capacity.
I have a question on the dumpster.
Sure.
Is that going to be that far extended out into the?
So what we're actually seeing here, these are the doors right here. This is just the concrete pad that extends out so that when the trash truck's pulling up, they just don't rut the pavement over time.
Also, will there be signage at your entrance here on this end here to IHOP? It's kind of confusing now. You get kind of lost in that.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any commitments to provide signage to IHOP. And what I would kind of anticipate that as Chick-fil-A gets developed, I'm sure a lot of people use the cut through now, but they do also have the access through the Lowe's shared drive. So I know I was out there right before this, they do have signage for that curb cut from the shared Lowe's drive.
But you will maintain that open.
That's right.
Right.
Yes, we have an easement and an obligation to maintain that. Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Do you have any questions for the petitioner? All right, having no more questions for the petitioner, we will now open it up for public comment. Is there anyone here speaking in favor of this petition? Okay. Is there anyone here to speak opposed to this position? All right, having no one, we will close public comment and go to staff report.
Thank you. BZ9 is the petition of JK 5901 East National Road LLC owner, Chick-fil-A Incorporated agent, located at 5901 National Road East in Richmond, requesting 5 variances of development standards to 1, reduce minimum side yard setback requirements, 2, reduce minimum front yard parking setbacks, 3, increase the maximum permitted area for a wall sign, 4, reduce minimum setbacks for a pole sign, and 5, allow a trash receptacle to be placed within a front yard and encroach into minimum setback requirements in the highway commercial district. Current use is commercial, franchise restaurant, zoning is highway commercial, and the lot is 1.066 acres. Adjacent zoning in all directions is highway commercial. Adjacent land use to the north is commercial hotels and 3-family residential. To the south is commercial, vacant support land for another parcel. To the east is commercial, franchise restaurant. To the west is institutional healthcare services and commercial convenience store and gas station. The proposed variance would allow a freestanding order point canopy to be located within minimum side yard setbacks. 2, allow parking spaces to extend into the minimum front yard parking setbacks. 3, increase the maximum permitted wall signage from 167 3/4 square feet to 212 1/4 square feet, which is a 26.5% increase. Allow a pole sign to be located 5 feet from a property line, and allow a dumpster to be located within a front yard while encroaching into minimum setback requirements. On February 28th, a public hearing was advertised in Western Wayne News. On the 29th, 17 adjacent property owners were notified about the variance and public hearing by mail.
We received 2 responses back, one in favor, and it is from the Best Western Hotel at 533 West Eaton Pike. One was opposed. Martin Littman, Jamar Incorporated, 71 Stewart Shores Road, Standish, Maine. I think he was the previous owner of Steak and Shake.
Planning staff consulted with all city departments and utilities to determine any objections based on public health and safety. No health and safety objections were raised. Staff recommends approving the petition to allow relief from front and side yard setbacks, maximum wall sign area, pole sign location, and dumpster pad location in the highway commercial district, based on the following findings of fact. Number 1, the approval of the variance will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community, because the proposed order point canopy will remain approximately 8.4 feet from the east property boundary and is designed to enhance the restaurant's ability to accommodate a second drive-through lane, which should reduce congestion for vehicles opting to access the adjacent IHOP from the subject property's West Eaton Pike entrance. The reduced parking and dumpster setbacks will not impede traffic, as the property's west boundary line is over 40 feet from West Eaton Pike. And the top of the proposed pole sign is similarly distant from West Eaton Pike and East National Road, and satisfies the UDO's requirement for a pole sign to be at least 10 feet from any existing or proposed edge of pavement or curb associated with a street or driveway. Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner, because given the distance separating the north and west ends of the property from the nearest streets, the reduced setbacks for parking, the pole sign, and the dumpster will largely be unnoticeable. The adjacent IHOP pole sign, for instance, adheres to the highway commercial setback requirements, and yet is closer to the street than the proposed Chick-fil-A sign. As noted above, the order point canopy should enhance traffic flow to the neighboring property, and while the total wall signage exceeds the maximum permitted size for a structure of this size, a large portion of the square footage consists of the building's facade underneath the cursive Chick-fil-A lettering on 3 of the signs. Number 3, the strict application of the terms of the ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property, because the setback issues related to parking, dumpster location, order canopy, and the pole sign are all largely a result of the property's size and irregular shape, which includes between 35 and 55 feet of separation between the north and southwest property lines and the road. Adhering to minimum setback requirements would reduce the site's parking capacity. The proposed restaurant would be roughly 145 feet from the center of East National Road and approximately 135 to 165 feet from the center of West Eaton Pike, permitting the pole sign at what appears to be the only feasible location on the site, and increasing the maximum permitted wall signage will improve the restaurant's ability to safely advertise to oncoming motorists. Finally, the property sits on a corner lot with 2 front yards. To keep the dumpster off the parking lot and drive-through, it must be located in either the front yard that faces West Eaton Pike or near the south boundary line. The latter would create a significant inconvenience for employees tasked with emptying the trash. There are no written commitments. I'm happy to address any questions.
Do we vote on each of these separately, or have we grouped them all into one petition?
You can vote on them together. Sometimes it's wise to vote on them separately if we get an indication that maybe one might not be approved, but if there's some kind of a consensus or poll that the board is probably going to vote in favor, then I'm okay with a summary motion in this case.
I think that makes sense. I have no further questions.
So I put forth a motion to approve BZA 9/2024 with the written commitments as stated and as a summary, all variances included.
I'll second.
sorry, will you take the roll, please?
Saber Salazar,
Aye.
Ann Snyder,
Aye.
Rob Tidrow,
Aye.
Okay. The petition passes. Congratulations. Everyone in Richmond will like us now.
Are you the owners? Are you the owners? Are you gonna be the owner?
Otherwise, we would have been a big pain.
I really like the Chick-fil-A model because it allows, so I don't know if you guys know this about Chick-fil-A, this is one of the things I like about their company is, so they're not franchised, and so you come in and they invite you to be local, but then you never, you don't get, they're always, you're buying stock options, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so Chick-fil-A stays really, kind of really honors what they're trying to do and how they carry out their model. They treat their employees super well and they pay very well. I just can't say enough good.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, wait, don't I have to say? The filing deadline for today's meeting is March 13th, 2024. The filing deadline for next month's is April 10th, 2024. And wait, when's the meeting? Do I have to say that? April 10th. Oh, sorry. That's written weird on the bottom. Okay. I'll hear a motion to adjourn the meeting.
All right, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I second it.
Meeting is adjourned.
Sorry, I thought you.